Now join palms. So repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. If you're just coming in now, if you could fill in these seats first, please. Sorry to call you out, but everybody's piling back there, and then you're all sitting on top of each other. Thank you. We'll fill in up here first. Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you all doing today? Good, glad you're here. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here?
Check it out. It sounds really cool experience.
Awesome. Any expectations coming in here? Great.
See what's offered.
Great. If you can have no expectations every moment the rest of your life, then you don't even need to show up here anymore. You should probably leave now, in fact, because the problem is as you begin to learn stuff, then you're going to expect to be able to do that stuff. That sucks. Yeah. What else?
Same with my son.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, just wanted to come and experience it and see.
Awesome. Also, no expectations?
No.
That's great. That's great. That's great. What else? Anyone here for the first time? There are cushions up here if you want. We want to leave that seat empty. That's why it says reserved. I know. I get to be the mean person. Someone has to. What else? Why show up here? Who comes regularly and keeps coming back for some crazy reason? Who wants to share? Yeah.
It's helpful to maintain a habit.
Helpful to maintain a habit, for sure. The funny thing about that is, go ahead. Yeah.
The basics are my favorite part.
Basics are your favorite. Are they the easiest part or the hardest part?
I learn something new every time.
Nice. Yeah, I do too. That's the fun part about sharing this stuff. You get to learn. As far as the habit part, the funny thing is we're all really good at creating habits. But the habits we typically create, are they usually healthy or unhealthy? She gave a thumbs down in case you didn't see it. So we're really skillful at creating habits. Like we have so many habits all day long that we do. And a couple of them are even healthy, which is great. But for some reason, our mind tends to get really good and conditioned at repeating unhealthy behaviors or unpleasant actions. The Buddha talked about pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And so we're often creating this conditioned pattern of unpleasant thoughts, unpleasant actions. And those often come from these habitual patterns and behaviors that we've conditioned ourselves to do day in and day out. So part of this practice and what we're learning with really just the core, fundamental, basic teachings of what are the simple things the Buddha said are helping us to recognize that if we change just slightly some of the things we think and some of the things we say and some of the things we do, then we can work towards more healthy patterns and habits and behaviors. The healthy ones don't tend to harm ourselves or too many others. Anyone have great experience with harming themselves or others, physically, mentally, or emotionally? Every hand is not up, you're all lying, but right? This is where we're at. We've created a life of where we tend to harm self or others, physically, mentally, or emotionally. Some can be little things, some can be pretty heavy, traumatic things. Some can be both. So it's a practice of just learning to, as we say, think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds. And if you can't do good deeds, then speak good words. If you can't speak good words, then think good thoughts. And if you can't think good thoughts, then spend a lot of time just sitting and doing nothing. And that'll harm less people. So with that, I want to welcome all of our millions of YouTube followers. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to say hello and introduce yourself as I see you already are. Chat with each other. When we get to questions, I'll respond to you as well. I did think it was kind of cool. Like we've never, 15 years, the reality is most people that come here for 15 years, it's rare if we even know your names, right? We're not here to counsel you and hold your hand through your whole life's journey. We just share the Dharma and you hopefully put that into your lives. And so we've never been big on tracking numbers or names or people or anything like that. Since COVID hit, we now, stand at the door and make sure we have masks on and ask if you have a cough or cold. But even that we don't like doing, but we do it for safety reasons. But the cool thing was YouTube sends this thing every month, just kind of reminding you of what you're doing. And it was cool because the last couple of months we've had 28,000 minutes watched each month on YouTube. That's a lot of minutes. So I'm pretty sure it's my mom watching the same thing 25,000 times. But either way, those other 3,000 minutes are fantastic. So thanks all you YouTube folks. I'm glad this is helping you from around the globe, wherever you are. So we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are we doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. You won't think nothing. Often people, if you're new to meditation, think that your mind is going to shut off or go blank. It's not going to shut off. It's not going to go blank. It'll continue to race. As it races, recognize it and gently guide the attention back to sensation of breath. So it'll be a constant mind wanders, back to breath, mind wanders, back to breath. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide to the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, wherever you're seated also, just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. It doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts or you have an itch. I will guide us as we begin, and we will settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continuing this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. he began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen, and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your days. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy, not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And that present moment can be very difficult. So we're not trying to run away from something to meditation to fix our lives. Meditation won't fix anything. Meditation is a practice and a tool that helps you become aware of your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, then meditation will help you become aware of why. So then when you leave the meditation practice and go back into the rest of your life, you begin to make some changes. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone abandon the meditation practice, but the practice of meditation isn't about being good at meditation. It's about recognizing that throughout our days, we're working on creating a life where we don't feel the need, the desire to run to meditation to make us feel better. We're developing a way of life that we feel okay, regardless of the circumstances. And as I said earlier, the present moment is often very difficult. Tremendous challenges, difficulties. So we learn to face it for what it is. And so many people who come into this practice year after year come into it because what they've realized, or what they begin, well, either way, what they have realized and or begin to realize is that they've spent most of their life running from something or someone. And very often that thing we're running from is ourselves. And the funny thing about running from yourself is you could run 1,000 miles. I don't know how far that is. How far does 1,000 miles get you? Maybe not. Say again?
Halfway across the country.
Halfway across the country. All right, so you could run halfway across the country. And when you get there, who's there with you? You are. And now you're just tired. So meditation is free. Buddhist practice free. Sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I always like to just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. And again, welcome everybody virtually. Nice to see you. Michelle, glad you're joining us from the Netherlands. I always think it's cool when people are in other parts of the world and sitting here with us. So if you have any questions, feel free on the chat box there to type it in somewhere, and I'll do my best to respond as well. So question, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with, and we'll go from there.
So in the concept of no self in Buddhism, the concept of no self in Buddhism. So when we talk about karma and rebirth and nirvana and all that, who or what is it that experiences those things if there is no self?
Exactly.
Great answer.
Oh, I have zero response to what you just said. You just made the question and the answer and the statement. That's it. The question was, for those who maybe didn't hear it, with the concept of no self in Buddhism, with regards to karma and rebirth and all those other things, if there is no self, who experiences it? Yeah. Other questions?
Explain that.
Huh?
Please explain that for.
You didn't understand it? Everybody else did, Normal. Come on. Nobody else asked for further explanation but yourself.
I told you, I'm the dumb one.
Oh. Come on, Normal. So, all right. Only since you asked nicely. For those who are brand new to, or new, or been at this 30 years and still don't get the concept of no self, let me just jump right into that. Let me start with saying the reason my response was that way is it is a very common Buddhist practice and teaching to recognize, since there is no ultimate self. Well, let me respond to it this way. The Heart Sutra, and if you're not familiar with the Heart Sutra, you can Google it. Super simple to read. It'll take you about 60 seconds. Right there for you. 60 seconds to read it in probably 500 different languages, whatever one you choose, and an entire lifetime to try to understand it. But the Heart Sutra says very clearly, simply, directly, that as we all know, or if you don't know and you're brand new to Buddhism, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. First thing he taught, that exit sign above there, back door above that is the depiction on the wall of the Buddha teaching the Four Noble Truths to the first 5 disciples. That's called the first turning of the Dharma wheel. And he said the first thing is life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, dissatisfaction, angst. It doesn't mean all of life sucks. It just means that, we're going to suffer. And that suffer could be heavy and traumatic, and the suffer could be, a week's worth of complaining about heat, right? Which I'm sure none of you did. So we all experience dukkha during that time. Or I shouldn't say we all, but many people. So this is the first thing he said. Second thing he says is, what's the cause? There is a cause. It's the second noble truth. And the cause of it is greed, anger, and ignorance. 3 poisons, as they're called. Greedy, always want more. Angry, we don't like the way things are. And ignorant, we're ignoring the truth. Meaning we're just seeing the world through our own lens and not recognizing that there's a whole bunch of other people out there that also see it through their lens. And in fact, none of us are correct. So we practice generosity to overcome greed. We practice compassion to overcome anger. We practice wisdom to overcome ignorance. The third noble truth is there's an ending of suffering. That's the good news. Nirvana, liberation, all those things that us Buddhists read about and inspire to do, right? And then the fourth thing he says is there's the Eightfold Path. And this is having the correct views and thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. This, in essence, is our karma, what we think, say, and do. Everything I just said, Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, is on Google for free. First couple pages of Google searches, you're good to go. After that, I would stop reading. So for 2,500 years, any decent Buddhist practice will always start with integrating and exploring the Four Noble Truths. In fact, many great scholars and masters for centuries have said everything the Buddha taught for 45 years before he died is in the Four Noble Truths. Then there's the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra says, coming back to your statement and your desire for clarification, The Heart Sutra says there is no suffering. There is no cause of suffering. There is no cessation of suffering. And there is no path. There is no wisdom or any attainment. With nothing to attain, bodhisattvas rely on prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, and attain anuttara samyak sambodhi, supreme ultimate enlightenment. Wait a minute. For 2,500 years, the Buddha's teachings have been about the Four Noble Truths. But there's a 2,000-year-old Heart Sutra that says there's no suffering, there's no cause of suffering, there's no cessation of suffering, and there is no path. And in fact, there is no wisdom or any attainment. Because who is trying to be wise? Who is trying to attain something? Only that person thinks they must attain something. They must be wise. Because they're perceiving themselves as having attained nothing and being ignorant. So they seek and crave and desire to be different from how they are, which is why we're all here, for the most part. Have I clarified that for you? Good. Let me add this to it. Non-self in Buddhism doesn't mean that you don't exist. You're all sitting here. You've all been given names by parents or somebody, nicknames by other people. Okay? You've all been labeling and judging yourself your whole life. I'm this, I'm that, I'm not good enough, I am too great at that. You've all been picking and choosing what you wear and where you go and who you hang out with and creating your entire identity based around what you read and who your friends are and what you see on TV and how your, whole life structure is set up. And all of that is just a big story in your head. It doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but it's just an illusion. Non-self, in very simple forms, means that you are completely different from how you perceive yourself to be. And that you can never actually identify who you actually are. And that story you're telling yourself is always going to change. So if you're going to tell yourself a story, since all of that's an illusion and going to change anyways, if you're going to tell yourself a story about yourself, how about making it a good one? Any of you sit around all day long telling yourself wonderful, happy stories about what a kind, beautiful human being you are? Anyone hear that from others all day long? That's the sad part. Since we are stuck in samsara and suffering, and we are stuck telling ourselves stories over and over and over again about our lives and talking about everybody else and gossiping and all those things, at least make it positive. You'll feel better. But just know those are still stories. We exist, we just exist completely differently from how we perceive ourselves to be. More clear? Think of a motorcycle or a car. You start taking this is a very common Buddhist kind of metaphor. Let me just respond to this real quick. Giselle, thanks for being here and joining virtually. I'm going to share what you said. Hello, I'm a 15-year-old from National City and don't know how to start my Buddhist journey. Is anyone free to join whenever? Yes, absolutely. You're here, you've already started. And in fact, you started well before you even got here because something triggered a thought or an idea or a desire to learn about Buddhism or meditation. So your journey has begun, and yes, you're all, everyone is welcome here, free to join. It's always free to join, except for Normal, we charge him a lot. As we've said, we created this space actually 15 years ago. So when were you born, Giselle? But we opened this end of 2006 on New Year's, going into 2007. And we built this as a space where anyone from any race, any religion, any gender identity, any culture, any ability could just come together and be their crazy, maddening, beautiful selves and try to learn with others who are doing the same thing. So yes, absolutely, welcome. And oh no, that's crazy. September 15th, 2006. Yeah, so right around that time, we were actually planning the Dharma Bum Temple. Actually, no, that's not true, because that would have meant we planned for like 3 months, and I think we planned for about 3 minutes. So we didn't actually plan it, but we opened for your birthday, Giselle. So hopefully we'll see you sometime soon. But back to the car. When you start taking it apart, all right, when is it no longer a car? Or an even easier one, the chair. That chair you're sitting on. When you start taking it apart, if you take the legs off, is it still a chair? What do you think? If you take the back off, is it still a chair? Think of a car. When you take the steering wheel off, is it still a car? If you take the wheel off, is it still a car? If you take the engine out, is it still a car? What actually is the car? What is the chair? What is the motorcycle? What is us? Completely different from how you perceive it. And the beauty of non-self is, instead of trying to, because I mean, I've been sharing this practice for a long time, and a lot of people will leave and they'll like intellectually try to ponder, okay, I'm going to identify what myself is. It is actually that act of trying to identify what yourself is that is defeating the entire teaching of non-self. Just recognize whatever you think you are isn't accurate. Other question?
So going back on the same question, so what is the effect of karma? How do they get translated in the next life?
Say that last part again, with regards to karma, how does it get transferred to the next what?
The effects of the karma, how do they get translated to the next life?
So the question is, with regards to karma, how does it get transferred to the next life? The understanding of that is absolutely meaningless. I can give you a very technical Buddhist, ancient teaching on it, which I'll probably sum up for you. But the intellectual understanding of that does you no good. What matters is, what is your karma? That's all that matters. Trying to understand how it gets transferred. And just to clarify for anyone who is maybe newer and doesn't know what karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve. Karma is not about getting. This Western culture has the worst understanding of karma. We think, what goes around comes around. There's a great sketch years ago, a comic I saw. It was a person sitting there with like these Stonehenge things in like a domino effect, like the circle. And this person's sitting here and they're pushing it this way. And it's showing some of the stones starting to fall. And it shows it coming back on them. And underneath it, it said karma. I think it was in the Tribune. And I was like, great, thanks for ruining everybody's understanding of karma. Nothing against the Tribune. I like, thanks for saying good stuff about us. But that's a terrible explanation of karma. Because that makes it seem that karma is all about you. Karma is not what you get, karma is what you give. Karma is, as the Buddha taught, your body, speech, and mind, your thoughts, your words, your actions. That's why everything I've already said probably 27 times this morning. What do you think? What are you saying? What do you do? This is the karma that you give. The metaphor you've heard me share is that when you shoot pool, you hit the cue ball into the rack. Every time the cue ball goes into the rack, every ball goes into a different direction. Our entire lives, we are that cue ball. Every person, place, and thing we encounter and touch, we leave an impact on. So what impact are you leaving? Not what are you getting back from it, but what are you bringing in to the world? That's your karma. The technical teaching that, for me, the best way I heard it explained was a monk in Taiwan who taught life and death studies at the Buddhist university out there. And he said that as the Buddha taught, there's what's called a laya vijnana. This is going to clarify it for you and everybody. A laya vijnana, storehouse consciousness, a collection of that karma that you have put into the world in your lifetime, right? And that at the time of death, when the physical body dies. And that's why Buddhist teachings, they'll vary based on tradition, but they say when the body dies to leave it still for a period of time so that consciousness can leave the body. And whether you believe in rebirth or not, doesn't matter. You can ignore everything I'm talking about, because the best way to think about rebirth is not like life after life or rebirth, actually. Just think about every moment being a rebirth. The moment you walk out this door, you're a completely different person than you were when you sat down. The moment you get into your car or on the bus or however you got here or walking, you're a completely different person than when you walked out this door. So every moment you're being reborn. But for those who are interested in, what they thought 2,500 years ago about rebirth, which, oh, by the way, at that time, living one life and going to heaven or hell would have been really weird. If you went up to somebody 500 years before Christ at the time of the Buddha and said, hey, you got one life and you're going to heaven or hell, they would have thought you were nuts. It's just not what they believed at that time. But you fast forward to today and you tell people, hey, you're going to be reborn. And they're like, yeah, you're crazy. So we're just raised in a completely different culture and way of life. So understand that you understanding or believing in rebirth has nothing to do with your Buddhist practice or just your way of life, right? But Alaya Vijnana, storehouse consciousness, at the time of death, consciousness leaves the body, right? Then it floats in what's called the Bardo Stage in Tibetan Buddhism, they say for 49 days period of time. Then you have sperm, you have egg, you have conception, you have consciousness that enters, and boom, there you go. And the thoughts in your mind at the time of death are incredibly important. You wake up in a good mood, that good mood tends to continue. Wake up in a bad mood, that bad mood tends to continue. When you pass, try to be as peaceful as you can. Yeah. Sperm, egg, consciousness, boom. There you go. But that's why I started with understanding that technical stuff doesn't, nobody's going to walk out of here and be like, I wonder what my Alaya Vijnana is going to do tomorrow. It's just not practical stuff. Think the thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds now, because the people you're going to see the rest of today, they will appreciate it. And if you do that over and over and over again, when you die, right, that takes care of itself. Whether you believe in heaven or hell, whether you believe in rebirth or not. For most people who believe in or were raised believing in going to heaven or hell when you die, what determines for the most part where you go?
What
What your actions are. And what did the Buddha tell you to focus on? Your actions. The same thing. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? I'm gonna go away from this for a minute. Anybody else? Thoughts or questions? Yeah.
So I think I heard you say to practice kindness and generosity, integrity, and so being aware of that and feeling that that's my focus when I'm around people who are not, I go into judgment and I feel like I'm out of integrity even being with that person. How do you address that when you're having an emotional reaction because it's not aligned with the perception of how I want to be?
How you want to be? Yeah. No, great question. And I'll just kind of paraphrase it, hopefully correctly for those joining us virtually. But your question is around, you're practicing kindness and compassion and all these kind of key buzzword Buddhist things. Yeah. But what happens when you're around somebody who isn't being that way? And what was interesting is, and you're trying to practice integrity, and then you said you find yourself when you're around them and they're not doing that, almost as if that's challenging your level of integrity. Is that an accurate retelling?
And in certain situations where I feel I don't want to participate in that because it's a work situation.
Okay, so yeah, in areas where you don't want to participate because it's a work situation. Well, very simply, very often in work situations, you might not have much of a choice, right? I mean, that's just the very practical part. You can't always just go to your boss and be like, yo, I'm practicing Buddhism, so I'm just not going to come to work today. They don't really care. So with regards to work, sometimes you're just stuck, but at the same time, you're never really stuck. We all have choices. We could all choose to say, I'm just not doing that. I'm not going to work. I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, you look at the Eightfold Path, just to talk about work for a second, the right livelihood. The Buddha was very clear about right livelihood and what professions, careers, jobs, things that you do on a daily basis were healthy and unhealthy. So if you're not comfortable, you don't have to go there. Well, then the question is, well, I need money. Well, yes, that's another dilemma, which we don't have time to get into now. Why do you need money? Well, because I have to buy all my stuff. Why do you have to buy all your stuff? Because I like it. Makes me feel good. Why does it make me feel good? Because I hate my job. My first master 17 years ago said, Jeff, you work so hard to make so much money to buy so many things. Didn't have so much money, or if you didn't have so many things, you wouldn't need so much money, you wouldn't have to work so hard. Completely shattered my entire life. I was like, oh, that makes sense. You mean I don't have to make my life miserable just to get money to buy a bunch of crap I don't really need or care about? So that's the work side, but that really isn't the heart of your question, but I just wanted to touch on that briefly.
Yeah.
We're free to choose what we want to go do every single day. We have to ask ourselves honestly, why are we doing it, right? Unless you're, a kid and here with a parent and you need to listen to your dad and go to school. But otherwise, right, we're free to choose these things. As far as the integrity piece, right? I personally went through something very similar that I call Buddhist arrogance. A long time ago, where I got into Buddhism and, you've been coming here now, what? How long? Months. That long? Oh my God, you should have mastered this by now. So in all the months that you've been here, you have definitely elevated yourself to a place where you have every right to judge and critique everyone else, right? So what happens is, and I'm obviously joking with you, what you're seeing is that when you start to practice this stuff for months and months and months, you start to see the world and yourself through a bit of a different lens because it's helping you, it's benefiting you. You're trying to change behaviors and actions, and that's beautiful. But you know what? Not everybody else is. And so then we start to see them, and potentially, I'm not saying you are, but that was my experience, was potentially judge and critique them for doing things that were really the same things I was doing months ago before I started a practice. If that's not the case, great. If there's no judgment on them. If it's just about integrity and not feeling comfortable around them, then you have two choices. Deal with it or remove yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
So I did share that I felt that integrity, and we discussed it, and we found a common ground. So I was able to mess it because it is a conscious person.
Yeah.
They were coming from a different place, different view.
Yeah.
But I didn't say you're out of integrity. I said I feel out of integrity participating in this.
Yeah.
And that worked well.
If we brought all, when I say we, I mean this world brought actual honesty, morality, ethics into the workplace, the world will change. The funny thing about morality is that years ago I used to joke at the old Buddha for You location, we had a sign up on the window. It said free meditation. And every Saturday and every Tuesday I would lead that class for 9-10 years and always packed. And I used to joke and say, if that sign said free morality, how many people would be showing up? Right? Just ask yourself, did you come here this morning because you want to work on your moral and ethical behavior?
Yeah.
Great. Most of us come to this practice because we're stressed or angry, whatever. We want to meditate and calm down without the recognition that it is actually our moral, ethical behavior and conduct in the workplace, in our family life, in our personal lives, in our public lives, and all that stuff that's actually leading us to feeling out of alignment and out of integrity to begin with. But yes, very often it is out of our control to some extent, and it's our interaction with others that becomes a challenge. But I think it's beautiful that you were able to bring that up and it was responded to well. And yeah, it's great. Like you've heard me say, it's a practice. And when you start to see how you bring this practice into other places of your lives, it's fascinating. Because sometimes it's responded to, positively. And sometimes they just think that you're trying to be like better than them. So, sorry, I just wanted to, do you want, is it,
You got there.
I got that, okay. I was just in a, yeah. Is that helpful? Okay. I may, oh, go ahead.
No, I just had one thought.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the person you're interacting with is drawing out a negative side of you? Yeah, like you're being told, does that make sense, Jeff?
Go for it, yeah.
Or they're shining a light on a negative part of your personality, I guess is the.
I think it has more to do with what you're talking about. I don't want my consciousness to be pulled down.
Right.
Since I'm working on being more aware, more present.
Sure.
And so it's more like, how do I handle that when the other rest of the world is doing something?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I also know that this person's capable of coming from a different place, but just weren't in that mindset.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind that as we wrap up here and we go out into the world, that world didn't just finish their meditation practice. They didn't spend an hour this morning talking about morality and ethical behavior or looking at our, speech karma. That's the same world you were in an hour ago, and it hasn't really changed much. Your practice is what can you bring into it out there? Do you want to, I don't know if it's still, yeah. I just wanted to redirect into, yeah.
No, and it's kind of a convoluted question going back to karma, so I'll say.
No, but I would love to hear it, and then I'll either address it or not address it right now, but I'd love to hear it because I think it's important, and then I can either respond to it or table it for next time.
Okay, well, and it's kind of convoluted to how you even ask it, but when we talk about karma, I feel like the goal is that people want to come back as human beings. And I don't understand why people want to come back as human beings. Is that like the best thing that we can be before we reach nirvana, or?
Yeah, I'm definitely not answering that.
Maybe it's
Wait, sorry, what was that last part?
I said maybe it's better to be a dolphin or something. I think we're assuming something that might not be true.
Not a dolphin at SeaWorld.
No. True.
So, great question. Way too late we're 12:05 to get into now, but I'm glad I wanted to hear what you had to say because I knew it was relevant. I just wanted to. The question around what you're saying is it seems like the goal is to come back as a human, and is it not better to maybe come back as a dolphin? So I'm not even going to touch that right now, other than saying that Buddhist teachings are very clear that there are many realms that one can be reborn into. A lot of people don't realize that Buddhism, which the Buddha was Hindu, comes from ancient Hindu Vedic teachings. And they believed in different realms of existence. Just like in a Western culture we have heaven and hell, they had that in Buddhism as well. Or I should say they had that in what the Buddha was raised in as well. So he taught very much that there are hell realms, there are heavenly realms, there are God realms, there are human realms, there are animal realms, and inside those realms there are endless realms.
So is it in Bardo where you see those other realms?
You don't necessarily see them, but they're there. Again, great questions. Most important is to focus on what are you doing now? The Bodhisattva vow, and I'll leave it with this thought, the Bodhisattva vow is to be reborn life after life into the human realm. To your question, why would you want to come back, right? One school of Buddhist thought says enter into nirvana, which is to extinguish, like a candle that's blown out. Where does that candle go? When the Buddha died, it says he's entered into parinirvana, nirvana without remainder, meaning no more rebirths. The Bodhisattva path, 2,000-year-old practice in Buddhism, says that the vow is to be reborn life after life as a human to help liberate all sentient beings from suffering. So my very direct question to you is, my personal vow is to be reborn life after life as a human because humans suffer tremendously. This guy right here, Kshitigarbha, there's a little statue here of Kshitigarbha. His vow was to be reborn life after life into the hell realms. because he wanted to help people in the hell realms come out. I ain't ready for that. So much, much deeper. And I'll come up with a couple things you could maybe read if you're interested on those very deep, deep teachings, because I tend to not go into them too much because I'm just trying to help people be nice to each other. If you're nice to each other, that'll take care of itself. Yeah. So I'll close with that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to more than 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to their family and friends who continue to suffer to this day. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, just a few announcements before y'all head out. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago for Giselle, apparently, and as a bridge to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We are just practitioners. We do our best to take our unenlightened view of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from a different Buddhist tradition. It's important to understand that each of us, specifically with those who lead here, we have a different style and approach with Buddhist practice, maybe from a different tradition or lineage, and then a different way of integrating it into our lives. So we all share from that practice point. We have a huge recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or whatever you may be addicted to, that meets a few times a week as well. Family sangha, parents, kids, toddlers, teens, that met this morning, so that's once a month. We also have our college group has restarted again, so that's really cool. We shut down 15 months, as a lot of you know, Buddha for you as well, but it's been nice the last 5-6 months to just be open again and doing our best to continue to stay safe and take care of each other. So Buddha for You is open downstairs if you need anything. I don't know if you've ever read Tibetan Book of the Dead, but that would be a good book to read to help. Yeah. Yeah, it's complicated for sure. Other than that, Kira, I think I saw you coming. Yeah, there you are. We do have a garden crew outside, and I announce this every week, and it's like I love the fact that people come here and want to know about enlightenment and nirvana, and then I ask people to spend 10 minutes helping to clean the place we just used, and 95% of the people leave. So there is a list by the door of stuff that we need help with. There's a group of people that meet out front to sweep or just work in the garden. So if you want to spend 5, 10, 20 minutes and help out, that would be much appreciated. So thanks all for being here. I wish you well. We'll see you soon.
I'm sorry. What is it?